Hi guys, we're going to have a look today at the Unit 2 paper from June 2018. We're going to do a quick walkthrough of the paper and look at how you would answer each of the questions. The idea of this being that this will be available evergreen on Classroom, so you can watch this when you need to, you can dip in and out, and you'll be able to access it over the holidays whilst you're preparing for that examination. So, for many of us, this is the first time we've taken an external exam, so we're just going to have a look at the front cover. So it tells you the date when you're expected to be taking it. It also tells you how long the paper is. So this paper for Unit 2 is 1 hour and 30 minutes. On there it will also tell you, if you zoom in, the total mark for the paper. This paper is out of 60. And that the page count. So there are 12 pages expected in this paper. Make sure at the end that you've saved enough time to check through your paper and reread those questions. There may be something within the paper that has triggered you to remember something that you previously had forgotten that you could go back and fill in. And also make sure that there are 12 pages and that you've seen all of them. The last thing you want is for a page to have stuck together and find that actually you've missed out some important questions that you could have answered. Now it tells you on the front that you must use black ink, and that's very important. It's to do with when they scan the papers in and making sure that it actually shows up on the screen when the examiners are trying to mark it. If you write in pencil, you've got no chance of it being seen, and if you write in blue pen, it can be a little bit faint. The aim is for the examiners to give you the marks, so we don't make it difficult for them to do that. So, I'm going to break the rules because I'm using my pink pen, as we know I do like that. So on the front, I've got to put my first name. That has to be your legal name. So if your name is different on your birth certificate, I'm going to change my pen, then make sure that you are using the name that is registered. By all means, put the name that you go by in brackets, but it must be the legal one that's on the front cover. Last name, we're going to put that on there as well. On your desk, there should be a card that tells you the centre number, which is 37104. No one expects you to remember that. And your candidate number. So that will also be on the card. I don't have one, so I'm going to put 4 X's for mine. And unlike most papers, this one asks you to enter your date of birth. So it wants to know, just in case there are 2 Helen Waddingtons taking this paper at this centre, it's making sure that they've got exactly the right details. Now that's not always on the papers, but it's definitely on the cover of this one, so I'm going to make one up. I was born on the 1st of the 1st, 2000. There we go. I'm only 21, nearly. Ooh, I'm going to celebrate my birthday soon. Okay, so we've got all the admin out the way. We're now ready to start the paper. Flick through the paper. Look for the easy answer questions. Small marks add up. So do the ones that you can remember straight away. Then come back and look at the longer answer questions. That way you know that you've got as many marks as you can before you start trying to do one of the long ones and find that it's taken a little bit longer than you had planned. Okay, so turning the page. So here we go. Let's see, that makes it bigger, that's a little bit better. So we've got 4 examples of discriminatory practice are described below. Choose the example of direct discrimination. Tick 1 only. If you put more than 1 tick in this, you ain't getting any marks. You've got to make sure that you follow the instructions and are specific. So we're looking for direct discrimination. And we've got here, having a policy that requires all employees to work on Sundays, a job advert for a GP surgery receptionist that specifies a minimum height for the applicant, not providing care to an individual because they are too old, or at an interview for a nursing post, a candidate is asked what challenges they have faced in their career. Well, out of those, it's okay to say that employees have to work on Sundays if that's for everybody. That's not direct discrimination if that applies to all. A job advert for GP surgery with a minimum height for the applicant, there may be a reason for that. That's not classed as direct discrimination. An interview asking what challenges they've faced in their career, not an example of discrimination. So that leaves us with number 3, not providing care to an individual because they are too old. So there the key is that they're saying they're too old, so they're discriminating against them because of their age. Okay, so that's ageism, age discrimination. Question B. Give 2 examples of ways that individuals with physical disabilities could be discriminated against when using health and social care services. So here we know we're not talking about early years. We've been asked for 2 examples and we're just going to list 2. Even if you know more, and I know that it's tempting, don't put extras. So, what sorts of things do we need to consider? Well, because we're talking about people with physical disabilities, your answer must link to that as a physical disability. So it could be no ramps or lifts provided to enable wheelchair access. Okay, that covers 1 disability. Then we can look at some others. So maybe if we had somebody who was visually impaired or hearing impaired, let's go with the hearing impaired, we could say that no hearing loop was provided. Remember, a hearing loop is something that allows somebody with a hearing aid to hear directly into the hearing aid so that it cuts out all the background noise around it. That's 2 marks. Nice, straightforward. Let's move on. Part C. Explain. So that's our command word, and we know when we have an explain word, we're looking for a how and a why. Okay. This is 6 marks, but it's broken down into 3 sections. So we've got to explain 3 effects that discriminatory attitudes could have on individuals who use healthcare services. So if somebody is discriminating against you, is it going to make you want to go and use the service? Unlikely. So they may avoid using the service. Okay. If you're not using the service, is your health going to get better? Possibly not. So ill health or illnesses may deteriorate. Okay. And think about how that's going to affect people. How are they going to feel? That lovely word that they like to put into all of these, disempowered. Okay, so we've got 3 effects. Now, because we've got the explain, we need to say why that's going to happen. So why might they avoid using the service? So they may not attend due to poor treatment and not wanting to repeat the experience. Okay. Why may their illness deteriorate? They are not getting the required health care. Okay, so we've also linked it back to healthcare there. Why do they feel disempowered, or how's that going to make them feel? They're going to feel a lack of control over their own lives. Okay, like decisions are being made for them. They may start to feel like they are a burden on others, and that can lead to further mental conditions and psychological disorders. Okay, 6 nice marks. Right, here's our first 6-mark question. And I know that the minute we look at this, we start to go, no, we don't like these. And our key thoughts are to run away from them. and to leave them out. Don't leave them out. Have a go. Even if you only get level 1 by having a list, you've at least had a go and got some marks. Every mark counts. So, the command word here is outline, and these tend to be used when we're looking at pieces of legislation. So in here it says ways that the Equality and Human Rights Commission, the EHRC, could help an individual who has been discriminated against. So this is to do with discrimination, and we've got to think how they're actually going to help them. So if we're outlining ways, to get level 3, we're looking at 2 to 3 relevant ways which have been given a little bit more detail. So how could they help an individual who's been discriminated against? You'll be coherent, factually accurate, and use the right terminology. We're looking for it to be clear and logical. So, how could they help them? Well, in the first instance, the EHRC have a website. So, EHRC have a website to provide information to service users and advice or guidance on discrimination. Okay, and that is for both service users and service providers. It will provide definitions of types of discrimination. And advice on what to do if you decide that what happened was against the equality law. It's going to link that to your rights, and it's going to advise you based on that. So they offer advice on how to proceed if you decide the Act was against the Equality Act. So it will advise you on your rights. Okay, we've actually got 3 things there. So that would be enough to gain the 6 marks. There are other things you could go on to say. So they've got things like fact sheets about discrimination based on those 9 key protected characteristics of the Equality Act. They will give you advice about how to make a complaint and give you information should you wish to take the the case to court. So they're useful to have there. They also provide legal assistance to those who need it to help them when they are seeking justice. Okay, let's move on to question 2. So we get 1 mark for each correct example here, and we've got a list to pick from. So this is about the Children's Act. So the Children's Act of 2004 is a piece of legislation that impacts on the practice of individuals working with children. Select, so we've just got to tick them, 3, only 3, statements from the list below that are key aspects of the Children's Act. So remember, I told you when you were learning about these legislative things to pick 3 to learn a little bit more in detail. Hopefully these ones you'll be able to recognise. So the first one, the welfare of the child is always paramount. Welfare of the child always comes first. That one is definitely part of the Children's Act. Children have a right to education. Well, whilst you might think that that is an important factor, that isn't actually part of the Children's Act, so we're not ticking that. Created the role of a Children's Commissioner to represent children's interests. That is part of the Children's Act, and that Children's Commissioner is an advocate for all children. They will speak on behalf of all children rather than just having a singular advocate that may speak on behalf of a child in a situation. Children are always entitled to make their own decisions. Well, sadly, whilst their wishes may be considered and their decisions that they'd like to be involved in, they could be there and consulted, we can't always act on their wishes. Their wishes may not be in their own best interests, and because they are children, somebody has to take the decision for them. So that one is not actually part of the Children's Act. It is the duty of care practitioners working with children to ensure that all information is shared. Well, the key there is all. And we know that not all information has to be shared. Only the information that needs to be shared on a need-to-know basis will be shared with relevant parties. Children considered to be at risk will always be removed from their family carers and taken into care. No, that's not the case. They will always try and keep them with family or extended family if they can, and if it is safe to do so. If they can't, only then will they remove the children from their family area. Children must always be treated the same to ensure equality. Well, we know that equality is not about treating people the same. Equality is about treating each individual, unique need of the person. Which leaves us with the last one. Children have the right to be consulted. Yes, they do. And as we said, they can't always take their wishes into account, but they should still speak to them and ask them what their wishes would be. Okay, we're on to page 5, and it's another large question. This one's 7 marks, so it's another one that's a little bit scary, but this time we've been given a case study first. So it says Progress Primary School is using the following advertisement to recruit a new member of teaching staff. Progress Primary School, Year 5 class teacher required. We are looking for someone who is dynamic, energetic, with a good sense of humour, is a recent graduate, has qualified teacher status and has a good health record. We offer high quality support for newly qualified teachers. This post is subject to an enhanced DBS check. We are an equal opportunities employer and welcome applications from all suitably qualified persons regardless of race, sex, religion, belief or sexual orientation. Please call for an application form or any additional information on 01878 55 59 10. So, the question itself says assess. That's our command word. So, assess how equal opportunities are being promoted by this advertisement. Now again, this is a levelled question. Because it's worth 7 marks, level 3 is 6 to 7 marks, level 2 4 to 5, level 1 1 to 3. To get level 3, you've got to have a detailed assessment. That means that we're looking to have positives versus negatives. So you're going to have maybe 1 positive, 1 negative, or 2 positives, 1 negative. Either way, you've got to get a balance in there. So you're looking at 2 to 3 things fitting in. We're looking to make sure that it's explicitly relevant to the advert. So we've used the information in the advert to guide us. And clear links are given that goes to promotion of equal opportunities and to the basis of discrimination. So this is one where we've got lots of information there. We've got to pick out the information that is useful to us. So let's look for some positives. I'm going to break mine down into positives versus negatives. Obviously, when you write this, you're going to write this as a full paragraph. So you may need to take the information in the table and turn it into sentences. Okay, so in terms of the positives, we've got the use of a positive statement here. They've said, where is it? We are an equal opportunities employer. So that is a positive. It shows that they are welcoming applications from everybody. So we're going to say, use of positive statement okay, and it's going to be we are, give the example, an equal opportunity, I'm going to write ops, employer. Okay. They have used non-discriminatory language in the advertisement. So they've talked about things like being, they've gone with gender neutral. Have they referred to male or female? No, they haven't. They haven't said there's a preference. They have kind of hinted that they would like a newly qualified teacher because they're cheap, or cheaper than us old timers, but they can't specifically say that. They've hinted at it, but they can't say that specifically because that would be ageism, and that would be discrimination against somebody's age. So we can say they've used non-discriminatory, I can't spell that, I'm going to put discrim, language, not gender specific, and haven't requested male or female. Okay, so we've got 2 positives there. What else have we got in there that we could have put? We could put about how they've talked about support for newly qualified staff. So they're encouraging their younger, less experienced staff to apply. It's following the legislation to some extent. So they haven't gone out of their way to say that under the Equality Act, we're not discriminating against any of those key characteristics. They've tried to make it sound like, we're going to do that regardless of race, sex, religion, belief, sexual orientation. But they have hinted quite heavily that they're after those newer age staff. Let's look at the negatives. So, in terms of the language that they've used, we've said they've got non-discriminatory language, so some of it is. They've also got some discriminatory language. So they've used words like, where is it? Work highlighter. Dynamic. Energetic. Okay. This may mean that they are indicating that they intend to discriminate against somebody on the grounds of their age or on the grounds of a disability. So they have to be very careful there with how they've done it. It could be perceived to be discriminatory. So discriminatory language of dynamic, energetic. You can see this a lot in teaching adverts. So could be perceived to discriminate against age or disabilities. So if they're somebody that gets and struggles with fatigue, that they wouldn't give them the job because they're not going to be energetic enough. What else could we put? Well, we could put in there that we were talking about this idea of the recent graduate. So that's where we're implying age discrimination. So we've mentioned that a bit, so I'm going to put that in. So requirement for a recent graduate implies age discrimination as most graduates will be younger. Okay, so we've got 2 positives, 2 negatives there. That's more than enough to get us our 7 marks, but you can see how we've got that information, hopefully, from the case study above. Okay, moving into question 3, and we're halfway through the paper. So, it's quite a big extract here. It says, read the following extract from the CQC, the Care Quality Commission. Outstanding inspection report for Rose Lodge Care Home. It's not often we see outstanding ones, so let's have a look what they had to say. Rose Lodge is a care home for 34 older people living with the early stages of dementia. The manager and staff focus on providing person-centred care for all of the residents. Independence is encouraged. People are free to make their own decisions and are supported in their involvement with activities. A programme of activities and social events, different types of music and singing, is a part of people's everyday lives. This keeps people occupied and stimulated. The CQC inspectors saw that people felt safe and well cared for. The home provides an environment that enables people to rediscover old interests and develop new ones, for example, crafts, art, gardening and photography. The atmosphere is constantly stimulating, either on a one-to-one basis or in group activities, but inspectors also commented on the home's calmness and the provision of a quiet room for contemplation or prayer. Inspectors described Rose Lodge as a happy and vibrant place for people to live. The inspection found that managers were approachable and worked alongside staff as role models and to observe staff practice and monitor attitudes and behaviour. Staff training was encouraged and staff said that they felt supported in their work and valued as part of the team. Okay, that's quite a long case study to read. Now let's try and make some sense of the questions. So for question 3A, the staff at Rose Lodge are applying the values of care. So we're talking about LO2 here. The command word here is identify, and they want 2 different values of care and give an example for each showing how it is being applied at Rose Lodge. So let's find our 2 values of care first. Now we know that this is a care home for older people. So therefore we're talking values of care for the health and social care sector, not early years. So there are 3 of them. So which ones could we pick? Well, we're probably going to think about the promoting equality and diversity and promoting individual rights and beliefs, because what they've talked about within this doesn't really relate to maintaining confidentiality, not in this particular report anyway. So our first one is going to be promoting equality and diversity. And our second one is going to be promoting individual rights and beliefs. Okay, now we've got to give an example of how that fits into what we've looked at here. So where are they promoting equality and diversity? Well, that could be by providing them with choices. So where do we see choices? We've got a programme of activities and social events. They're going to be giving people a choice there. And it says people are free to make their own decisions. It tells you that the activities, we've got crafts, art, gardening, photography. So we're giving them choice. So here we can say providing a choice of activities and social events. Done. That's 2 marks. The next one was promoting individual rights and beliefs. Let's just change the colour of our highlighter. So this is looking for something that is linked to their particular right, or it might be linked to a particular belief. So is there anything in here about religion or prayer rooms? Look, here we go. A quiet room for contemplation or prayer. So we can say a quiet prayer room is provided. 2 marks. Right, state 1. So state is just like identify, it's just one bit that we're looking for. One piece of legislation that supports the rights of individuals with conditions such as dementia. So dementia is going to be, well, it could come under quite a few acts actually, but it could be classed as a disability. So if we're talking about a disability, we're going to say the Equality Act. However, it is a mental health condition, so it could come under the Mental Capacity Act or the Mental Health Act. It could also come under a Care Act. So any of those are okay, but anything that's relating back to a disability, go with the Equality Act. Okay, here's the big question. So, this is worth 10 marks. And there are 2 command words within it. So we've got identify and analyse. Analyse is the level 3 response. Identify is a level 1 response, and that's also the difference between a pass and a distinction usually when we look at these on our coursework as well. So to get level 3 on this, we're looking for a detailed analysis with at least 2 ways. So again, look for 2 to 3 ways. A reference to the role of management and a logical structure. So we've got identify and analyse ways that the management promotes good practice at Rose Lodge Care Home. So we can use the case study that we've got on the previous page to help us to find some information to go with this. So we've got things like, let's go to a different colour again. Managers were approachable. Managers work alongside staff. They're role models. Okay. They observe staff practice. They monitor attitudes and behaviour. They encourage staff training. Okay. They support and they seem to value their staff, and the staff have reported that themselves here as part of a team. So we can use those bits of information to give our analysis. So first we're going to identify them, and then when we're going to do an analysis, in the health and social questions, you're looking at qualitative answers rather than quantitative. There's no numbers, no data involved like there would be in science. So here we've got to think about observations and how those could be explained around it. So the first one we came up with was the, that's a highlighter, the approachable managers. So we've got approachable managers. Okay, I'm going to go into a different colour to write the explanation just so that they stand out. So we know from this, if you've got an approachable manager, the staff themselves are going to feel that any concerns that they have to bring will be listened to, will be taken seriously, that the managers are acting in an open and transparent way. This is forming an effective management structure. So having an open and honest relationship with the staff will encourage the staff to talk to them should they need to. Should they need to whistle-blow, they're going to be able to do that without feeling that there's a fear of retribution there. So, staff know that concerns will be listened to and taken seriously. Okay. What did we say next? We said managers work alongside staff. So they're not sitting in their office, not having any contact. They're there at the base, making sure that they're joining in and they are a visible presence. So that means that we develop a team, a sense of team and an ethos of teamwork. So develops teamwork and all working together to achieve high standards of care. And that will also allow people to share best practice. So I'm going to put that in brackets there. Share best practice. So somebody might discover something that works really well with Frank with dementia. We saw that on the videos that we watched, and they share that with each other so that everybody can get that continuity of care and use that strategy with Frank. Let's put one other that was further down in there. So we had support and value staff. So the care home management support and value their staff. Okay, how's that going to benefit? Well, that's going to mean that everybody wants to do their best. It leads to consistently good standards of care. So everyone wants to do their best, so leads to increased standards of care. Okay, we've got 3 ways there with explicit reference to what the managers are doing, a clear and logical structure. We've given them the way that the management promotes it based on the case study, and we've explained what that means and how that is relevant. That's going to get you 10 marks. It's not as difficult as it looks, not when you break it down, but you're better to go to 2 to 3 than you are to try and write a whole great long list and miss out. But if you're feeling unconfident and you don't believe in yourself, which shouldn't be the case, you can still get 1 to 4 marks by having a list. So if there was no analysis and it was just a list, you're going to be getting level 1, but that's still 4 marks, and they could be 4 marks that you need. So don't miss out on questions. Okay, so we're on to page 8, and this is question 4A. So again, we're selecting here with ticky boxes. It asks us to tick 3 only. It's only worth 3 marks. Sally is on a 6-week placement at a residential nursing home. She's on duty at reception on her own when she receives a telephone call from someone who says he is the son of one of the residents. He asks Sally for some information about the resident. How should Sally respond to this situation? Choose the 3 most appropriate actions from the list below. So here we're thinking about data protection and confidentiality. So what actions have we got? Should we ask him to email proof of identification so she can check that he is who he says he is? Tell him that it is the nursing home's policy not to give out any information over the phone, regardless of who he is. Well, I think that one's actually quite relevant. Tell him the information he has asked for. He is the resident's son. He has a right to know. No, he doesn't. Unless he's got power of attorney, and that's been recorded on file, then he doesn't have any right to know the resident's information. And he could be somebody just pretending to be his son. Explain to him that she is on placement and does not know where the information is kept. Take his number and promise to phone him back when she's found it. Not a good idea. Check the resident's file so she can give him accurate information. No, because we're not giving out this information over the phone, regardless of who he is. Ask him to call back in 30 minutes when a member of staff will be available to deal with his request. So she's not admitted at this point that she is a trainee. That would be a better way to go than to say, sorry, I'm a trainee and I don't really know. But if you call back in 30 minutes, somebody will be here who can deal with your request, and they will likely decline his request on the same reasons as we've given above. That it's the policy not to give out that information. Should she ask him to stay on hold while she fetches a resident to speak to him? Probably not. Or should she tell him she's only on placement and isn't authorised to give out information about residents over the phone? Well, yes, she could do that. It's not the best way to go, but it would be a relevant piece to give. 3 marks. Okay, now here we go. 6 marks, and we've got to justify why we have picked those 3. So all we've got to say is the information that relates to why we made that choice. So for the first one, we said tell him that it's the nursing home's policy to not give out any information over the phone, regardless of who he is. So it's always good practice to refer to a setting's policies. And ensure that the correct action is taken. Okay, that way we're making sure that no laws are broken. So no laws broken. I'll write that in big letters. Okay, the second one, if she's not confident in the procedures and whether or not she should or she shouldn't, then it's better that she asks him to call back when she can speak to another member of staff. So we're going to say this is sensible to ask to call back if she is unsure of procedures for this resident. Okay, because there may be some arrangement in place that she doesn't know about. She might not know where to find out if they've got power of attorney or whatever, so she needs to make sure somebody else can look into that. And then we've got things like pointing out. So our last one was tell him she's only on placement, isn't authorised to give out information. So she's pointing out that she herself is not authorised. She is not authorised to give out info, as could be serious consequences if she gave out the wrong information or gave out confidential information to somebody that she shouldn't have done. So it could be consequences if gave out confidential info. 6 marks. Okay, taking us back to our legislation then. Identify one piece of legislation that could apply to this situation. Command word identify, and it's quite clearly here we're talking about the Data Protection Act. They would also accept GDPR. Okay, I've just put RP, haven't I? Brain's not working, it's late. Okay, page 10. We're getting near the end. This is the last page. So, question 5 then. We've got 4 marks to be given, 4 things that they want us to put. So it's give 4 ways that nursery staff could ensure a healthy and safe environment for the children in their care. So that is one of the early years values of care. Okay, so how could we do that? So I would aim to have, well, you could have 4 safe or 4 healthy. I'd go with 2 of each if you can. So we know that in terms of safety, the big one that we always have is going to be something like having a DBS check in place. So if we've got a DBS check in place, that has looked and screened the members of staff before they start working there to ensure that they don't have a criminal record for causing harm to vulnerable people or children. So that would work quite nicely. So number 1, we're going to have DBS checks on all staff. Okay. Where can we go next in terms of safety? It might be about staff having ID. So staff have ID badges and lanyards and things, and that's going to make sure that people can clearly identify them should we need to. We don't need to explain them in this, we just need to identify them and give them, so therefore we only have to say they need those there. Let's think of something safety wise. So, sorry, healthy and hygienic. So we could have regular cleaning. Okay, things like equipment, we're talking early years, so toys, floors and surfaces. Again there we're looking at preventing the spread of bacteria, preventing the spread of infection. And while we're on infection, well, let's go with hand washing. So we should teach children hand washing techniques, procedures. Okay, and then they know how to destroy bacteria that way themselves. Start them young, they'll remember it when they're older. Right, last question. then you get to escape from me. That paper went fast. So, our command word here is describe. Describe how an early years setting could ensure its resources and environment promote gender equality. Always an interesting one here, especially in early years, because I'm going to say here they should have male and female staff, but invariably most staff in early years do tend to be female. All staff should be trained in equality. Okay, so we've got 2 ways there. And to get level 3, they want a detailed description of at least 2 ways. So we're going to try and sort of bring this all together. We've got to reference to resources and the environment as well. So I think we need to say here that toys for children are gender neutral. So not specifically for boys or girls, and can be accessed by all. Okay, we've talked about resources there. Let's have a quick look at environment. So any displays on the walls should reflect equal opportunities, e.g. it could be female pilots and male nurses. So we're challenging those stereotypes. And there we go, 6 marks. Now you'll notice we're on page 10. This told us that there were 12 pages in this, so let's have a look what's at the end. We've got page 11 is additional answer space, and page 12 is the back cover. So if you need to write extra in this exam, you can write onto this back page. Say on this last question I wanted to continue onto the next page. It's good practice to indicate, so continued on additional paper, so that the marker knows to look out for that. Then go there and put the question number that you were answering and continue writing what you're going to write. If that's not enough space for you and you've waffled a bit, don't go on to that back cover. Ask for another piece of paper and have that piece of paper added into your page, and you'll have to write on the top your name, your candidate number, the centre number. Okay, put the question number that you're carrying on with and write what you need to write. That will then be collected up and put inside the page. So there we have it. Unit 2 paper from June 2018. It was actually taken in May, but it's the June exam series. All answered, and hopefully you found that really helpful. If you do have any questions on that, please do drop me an email, give me a shout, but I'm going to put this onto Classroom so that it's evergreen and you can always access that no matter where you are or when you need to. Good luck for January.